Charlotte's small fingers traced the delicate patterns on the wrapping paper as morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Kensington Palace. The 7-year-old princess had woken up extra early, her excitement bubbling over like a pot of hot chocolate on the stove. Today was special, very special indeed. "Mummy, are we really going to wrap all those presents?" Charlotte asked, her blue eyes wide with wonder as she peered into the grand drawing room. Tables lined the elegant space, each one covered with an assortment of baby gifts that seemed to sparkle under the crystal chandelier. Princess Kate smiled warmly at her daughter, adjusting the ribbon in Charlotte's hair with gentle fingers. "Yes, darling. Remember what I told you yesterday? We're helping prepare gifts for all the new babies who were born this month at the local hospital." Charlotte nodded eagerly, though she wasn't entirely sure why wrapping presents for babies she'd never met felt so important. What she did know was that her mother's face lit up whenever she talked about helping others, and that made Charlotte want to help too. The idea had started 3 weeks earlier during one of Kate's regular visits to the maternity ward at St. Mary's Hospital. She had been reading stories to new mothers when she learned that many families couldn't afford proper baby essentials. Some newborns went home with nothing more than a hospital blanket and a tiny hat knitted by volunteers. That evening, Kate had shared the story with William over dinner. "I keep thinking about those little ones," she had said, stirring her soup thoughtfully. "What if we could do something meaningful? Not just a royal visit, but something that really makes a difference." William had reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "What did you have in mind?" "Baby gift packages," Kate had replied, her eyes brightening. "Not expensive things, just the basics every new parent needs. Soft blankets, little onesies, gentle soaps, maybe some books for bedtime stories." The next morning, Kate had made phone calls to local businesses, explaining her vision. Word spread quickly through London's business community. Within days, donations began arriving at Kensington Palace. A textile company sent boxes of the softest baby blankets. A bookstore owner delivered stacks of colorful picture books. A mother who owned a small soap company brought handmade, gentle cleansers perfect for delicate baby skin. Charlotte had watched with growing curiosity as the gifts accumulated in the palace corridors. "Why are there so many boxes, Mummy?" she had asked one afternoon after school. Kate had knelt down to Charlotte's level, her voice gentle but serious. "Do you remember when your baby brother Louis was born? How we had everything ready for him? His crib, his clothes, his toys." Charlotte nodded, remembering the excitement of preparing Louis's nursery. "Well, some mummies and daddies don't have those things when their babies arrive," Kate explained. "We want to make sure every new baby feels welcomed and loved." Something had clicked in Charlotte's young mind. She thought about her own room, filled with books and toys and pretty dresses. She imagined what it would feel like if she didn't have any of those special things. The thought made her chest feel tight and sad. "Can I help make the babies feel welcome too?" Charlotte had asked quietly. Kate's heart had swelled with pride. "I was hoping you'd want to help, sweetheart." Now, standing in the drawing room, surrounded by gifts waiting to be wrapped, Charlotte felt the same flutter of excitement she got on Christmas morning. But this was different, better somehow. Instead of unwrapping presents for herself, she would be wrapping them for others. "Where do we start, Mummy?" Charlotte asked, rolling up the sleeves of her pink cardigan with determination. Kate pointed to a table covered with tiny white onesies, each one soft as a cloud. "Let's begin there. We'll put each outfit in a pretty box with some tissue paper." Charlotte picked up one of the onesies, marveling at how small it was. "Were Louis and George ever this tiny?" "Even tinier," Kate laughed. "You were the smallest of all when you were born." As they began their work, Charlotte's initial enthusiasm mixed with a growing sense of purpose. Each gift they wrapped wasn't just an item in a box. It was a warm welcome for a brand new person entering the world. Charlotte's tongue poked out slightly from the corner of her mouth as she concentrated on folding the tissue paper just right. She had watched her mother demonstrate the technique 3 times, but making the paper lay flat and smooth was harder than it looked. "Like this, Mummy." Charlotte held up her attempt. The pink tissue paper crumpled in some places, but folded with obvious care. "Perfect, darling," Kate said, though she gently smoothed out a few wrinkles. The mothers will love knowing that a little princess helped prepare their gifts. The morning had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Kate would select items for each gift package while Charlotte handled the wrapping paper and ribbons. They had already completed 12 packages, each one containing a soft onesie, a pair of tiny booties, a small blanket, and a picture book with bright, simple illustrations. "Mummy, what's this one for?" Charlotte asked, picking up a book titled Good Night Moon. She flipped through the pages, studying the pictures of the little bunny, saying good night to everything in his room. "That's for bedtime stories," Kate explained, sitting down beside Charlotte on the plush carpet. "When babies get a little older, their mummies and daddies read to them before sleep. It helps them feel safe and loved." Charlotte thought about her own bedtime routine. Every night, either Kate or William would sit on the edge of her bed, reading stories until her eyelids grew heavy. It was her favorite part of each day, those quiet moments when the world outside disappeared, and there was only the sound of her parents' voice and the adventures happening in her books. "Do all babies get bedtime stories?" Charlotte asked quietly. Kate paused in her wrapping, considering how to answer honestly without overwhelming her daughter. "We hope they will, sweetheart. That's one reason why we're including these books. We want to help families start that special tradition." As they continued working, Charlotte began making up stories about each gift package. "This one with the yellow blanket is going to a baby named Sunshine," she announced, carefully tying a golden ribbon around the box. "And this one with the blue booties is for a baby who will grow up to be a football player like Daddy talks about." Kate smiled, charmed by her daughter's imagination. Charlotte had always been creative, but today her storytelling seemed infused with extra purpose. Each imaginary baby had a name, a personality, and a bright future ahead of them. Around midday, they took a break for lunch in the palace kitchen. Charlotte swung her legs from the tall chair, munching on cucumber sandwiches cut into perfect triangles. "Mummy, how many babies are we making packages for?" 50, Kate replied, sipping her tea. "The hospital told us that's how many babies were born there last month." Charlotte's eyes widened. 50? That's more than all the children in my class at school. It is quite a lot, isn't it? That's why we started early this morning. After lunch, they returned to the drawing room to find an unexpected visitor. Prince George, Charlotte's older brother, stood examining one of the gift packages with curiosity. At 9 years old, he usually showed little interest in what he considered baby stuff, but something about the project had caught his attention. "What are you two doing?" George asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "We're helping new babies feel welcomed," Charlotte explained proudly, straightening up to her full height. "Each box has everything a baby needs to feel cozy and loved." George picked up one of the books, flipping through it with the same thoughtful expression he wore when working on difficult math problems. "Can I help?" Kate felt a warmth spread through her chest. She hadn't asked George to participate, knowing he often preferred activities that felt more grown-up. But here he was voluntarily wanting to join their project. "Of course," Kate said. "Charlotte can teach you how we've been wrapping everything." Charlotte beamed with pride at being given the role of teacher. She showed George how to lay out the tissue paper, how to fold it neatly around each item, and how to tie the ribbons so they made perfect bows. George, with his careful nature, proved to be exceptionally good at the precise folding required. Working together, the three of them found a new rhythm. Kate selected items and organized them by color and size. George handled the more delicate wrapping tasks that required steady hands. Charlotte became the ribbon specialist, chattering happily about each package as she tied the final decorative touches. "This blanket is so soft," George observed, running his fingers over a cream-colored knit. "Louis would probably try to eat it." Charlotte giggled at the mention of her baby brother's tendency to put everything in his mouth. "Remember when he tried to eat my homework?" "That wasn't homework, Charlotte. That was your drawing of a horse." It was still important. Kate listened to their banter with a contented smile. Moments like these reminded her why she loved involving the children in charitable work. They were learning empathy and generosity in the most natural way possible, through action and example rather than lectures or rules. As the afternoon light shifted through the tall windows, their pile of completed packages grew steadily higher. By 3 o'clock, Charlotte's initial excitement had transformed into something deeper. Her small hands moved with practiced efficiency now, no longer needing to think about each step of the wrapping process. But her mind was busy with thoughts that seemed too big for a 7-year-old to carry. "Mummy," Charlotte said quietly, not looking up from the baby blanket she was folding, "what happens if the mummies don't know how to take care of their babies?" Kate paused in sorting through a box of tiny hats. The question caught her off guard with its unexpected depth. "What makes you think about that, sweetheart?" Charlotte's fingers traced the edge of the soft yellow blanket. "When Louis was born, you and Daddy already knew how to change his nappies and make his bottles. But what if some mummies have never had a baby before? What if they're scared?" The honesty in her daughter's voice made Kate's heart squeeze. She set down the hat she was holding and moved closer to Charlotte, settling cross-legged on the carpet beside her. "You're asking very thoughtful questions," Kate said gently. "And you're right. Sometimes new parents do feel scared. Having a baby is wonderful, but it's also a big responsibility." George looked up from his own wrapping station. "Like when I got my first bicycle, I was excited but also worried I'd fall off." "Exactly like that," Kate nodded. "But you know what? Just like you learn to ride your bicycle with practice and help from Daddy and me, new parents learn how to care for their babies too. And there are lots of people who help them: doctors, nurses, grandparents, friends." Charlotte considered this, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Is that another reason we're making these packages? To help them not feel so scared?" Kate felt a surge of pride at her daughter's insight. "Yes, partly. When new parents receive these gifts, they know that people care about them and their baby. That can make them feel less alone." The conversation sparked something in Charlotte. As they continued working, she began asking more questions about the babies who would receive their packages. Where would they sleep? What would their nurseries look like? Did they have older brothers and sisters like Louis had her and George? Kate answered each question thoughtfully, painting pictures of different kinds of families. Some babies would go home to apartments in the city. Others might live in small houses with gardens. Some would be first children, getting all of their parents' attention, while others would join families with siblings waiting to meet them. "Just like our family is different from other families," Kate explained, "every baby we're helping will have their own special story." Charlotte picked up a tiny pair of white booties, each one no bigger than her thumb. "These are so small," she marveled. "How do they even stay on baby feet?" George leaned over to examine the booties. "Remember how tiny Louis's feet were? These are probably still too big for newborn feet." The mention of Louis made Charlotte smile. Her baby brother was 18 months old now, toddling around the palace and getting into everything. But she could still remember when he was small enough to fit entirely in their father's arms. "Should we make a special package for Louis's size?" Charlotte asked suddenly. "For babies who are a little bit bigger?" Kate's eyebrows rose. "That's a wonderful idea. The hospital probably has babies of all different ages." They spent the next hour creating packages specifically for older babies, ones who had outgrown the tiniest clothes but still needed the comfort of soft blankets and loving touches. Charlotte seemed to take special pleasure in these packages, carefully selecting books with more pictures and choosing rattles that made gentle sounds when shaken. As late afternoon arrived, the drawing room had transformed. What had started as chaos, tables covered with scattered gifts and wrapping supplies, had become organized rows of beautifully wrapped packages. Each one sat neat and perfect, tied with ribbon and containing everything a new family might need. "Look what we've done," Charlotte breathed, standing back to admire their work. George counted the completed packages. 47, 48, 49. "We only have one left to wrap." Charlotte immediately claimed the final package, wanting the honor of completing their project. She worked extra carefully, smoothing each piece of tissue paper and tying the ribbon with multiple loops to make the biggest, most elaborate bow possible. "There," she announced, setting the final package in place with the others. "All 50 babies will have welcome gifts." Kate wrapped her arms around both children, pulling them close as they surveyed their accomplishment. The afternoon had been about more than just wrapping presents. Charlotte and George had learned about empathy, about working together for something bigger than themselves, and about the joy that comes from giving to others. "I'm so proud of both of you," Kate said softly. "These packages aren't just gifts. They're messages of love from our family to 50 other families." Charlotte leaned against her mother's side, feeling tired but deeply satisfied. Tomorrow, these packages would go to the hospital. Tomorrow, new parents would open them and find not just baby clothes and blankets, but evidence that someone cared about their precious new arrivals. But right now, surrounded by the fruits of their labor, Charlotte felt something she couldn't quite name. It was bigger than happiness, warmer than pride. It was the feeling of having made a real difference in the world. The next morning, Charlotte woke before her alarm clock, her stomach fluttering with anticipation. Today was delivery day, the day their carefully wrapped packages would finally reach the families at St. Mary's Hospital. She had dreamed about babies all night long, tiny faces she'd never seen but somehow felt connected to. "Are you ready for our special trip?" Kate asked as Charlotte appeared at breakfast, already dressed in her best blue dress and small pearl necklace. "More than ready," Charlotte replied, though she could barely manage more than a few bites of her porridge. Her excitement was too big for breakfast. The palace staff had carefully loaded all 50 packages into the royal car, each one nestled securely in protective boxes to ensure nothing would shift during the journey. Charlotte pressed her nose to the window as they drove through London, watching ordinary people going about their morning routines. She wondered if any of them knew about the precious cargo traveling just feet away. "Mummy, will we get to see the babies?" Charlotte asked as they approached the hospital. Kate smoothed Charlotte's hair affectionately. "Some of them, perhaps. But remember, many of the families will take their gifts home, so we might not meet all the babies we helped." The hospital was busier than Charlotte had expected. People in scrubs hurried through corridors, their arms full of important-looking papers and medical equipment. The smell was different too, clean and sharp like the disinfectant their housekeeper used, but much stronger. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the head of the maternity ward, met them at the entrance with a smile that reached her eyes. "Princess Charlotte, I've heard so much about your project. The staff here is absolutely thrilled about what you've done." Charlotte felt suddenly shy, stepping closer to her mother's side. Meeting new adults always made her feel small, especially when they knew who she was before she knew anything about them. "Would you like to see where the babies stay?" Dr. Mitchell asked gently, seeming to understand Charlotte's sudden nervousness. The nursery was unlike anything Charlotte had ever seen. Row upon row of clear bassinets held the tiniest humans she could imagine. Some babies slept peacefully, their miniature fists curled near their faces. Others were awake, their dark eyes seeming to stare at everything and nothing at once. "They're so little," Charlotte whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly might disturb their peace. "This is Isabella," Dr. Mitchell said, stopping beside a bassinet containing a baby with wispy brown hair. "She was born yesterday morning. Her parents are just teenagers themselves, and they don't have much family support." Charlotte studied Isabella's perfect tiny features. Her lips were like a small rosebud, and her eyelashes were so delicate they looked like they'd been painted on by an artist with the world's finest brush. "Will Isabella get one of our packages?" Charlotte asked quietly. "She will indeed," Dr. Mitchell confirmed. Her parents were so overwhelmed when they arrived. Having a welcome gift will mean more to them than you might imagine. They moved through the ward, Dr. Mitchell sharing brief stories about different families. There was Marcus, whose mother had traveled alone from another country and spoke very little English. There were twins named Emma and Ethan, whose father was deployed overseas and wouldn't meet them for another month. Each story painted a picture of families facing challenges Charlotte had never considered. "Can we visit some of the families?" Kate asked. Charlotte has been so invested in this project. Dr. Mitchell's face brightened. "I know several families who would love to meet the princess who helped welcome their babies." Their first stop was room 237, where 18-year-old Sophie held her 2-day-old son, James. Sophie's face lit up when they entered, though Charlotte noticed that her eyes looked tired in a way that seemed deeper than just the lack of sleep. "This is Princess Charlotte," Dr. Mitchell introduced. "She's one of the people who helped prepare your welcome package." Sophie's eyes widened, then filled with tears. "You made that beautiful package? With all the lovely clothes and the soft blanket?" Charlotte nodded, feeling suddenly proud and shy at the same time. "My mummy and brother helped too. We wanted to make sure James felt welcomed." "It was the most beautiful surprise," Sophie said, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't expect anything like that. When I opened it and saw all those perfect little things." She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Charlotte moved closer to peek at baby James, who was sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms. He was wearing one of the white onesies they had wrapped, and the cream-color blanket they'd selected was tucked around him. "He looks cozy," Charlotte observed with satisfaction. "He is," Sophie smiled. "And the book you included, I've already read it to him 3 times. I think it might become our special bedtime story." In the next room, they met Priya, who was holding her daughter Arya, while her husband Raj showed their older son the new baby. The family had received one of the packages designed for families with other children. It included a small toy for the big brother along with items for the baby. "The little car you included has been such a hit," Priya laughed, gesturing to 4-year-old Dev, who was zooming the toy along the windowsill. It's helped him feel included instead of jealous. Charlotte watched Dev play, remembering how she had felt when Lewis was born. There had been moments of excitement, mixed with worry that everyone would only care about the new baby. The idea of including something for older siblings had been George's suggestion, and seeing Dev's happiness made Charlotte think her brother was quite clever. Throughout the afternoon, they visited 8 different families. Each one had a unique story, but the gratitude was universal. Parents who had felt overwhelmed and unprepared suddenly felt seen and supported. The packages weren't just collections of baby items. They were tangible proof that the world was happy about their new arrivals. As their hospital visit drew to a close, Charlotte found herself in the family lounge area, surrounded by several of the new mothers they had met throughout the day. Word had spread through the maternity ward about the young princess who had helped create their welcome packages, and families had gathered to express their thanks personally. "I want you to know something very important," said Maria, holding 3-day-old Carlos while her mother translated her Spanish words into English. "In my country, we believe that when someone welcomes a baby with such kindness, that baby will carry good fortune throughout their life. You have given Carlos a gift that goes far beyond clothes and blankets." Charlotte listened carefully, trying to understand the full weight of Maria's words. The idea that her actions today might somehow follow baby Carlos throughout his entire life felt enormous and wonderful and a little scary all at once. Rachel, a nurse who had been working in the maternity ward for 15 years, knelt down to Charlotte's level. "I've seen many charitable donations over the years," she said softly, "but I've never seen anything put together with such obvious love and care. You can tell that real thought went into every single package." "We wanted each baby to feel special," Charlotte replied, finding her voice again, "like they were expected and wanted." "Mission accomplished," Rachel smiled. "I've watched these families open their packages, and every single one has cried happy tears. That's not something you see every day." As they prepared to leave the hospital, Dr. Mitchell pulled Kate aside for a private conversation while Charlotte said goodbye to some of the babies they had visited. Charlotte found herself drawn back to Isabella, the baby whose parents were so young and had little family support. "Hello again, Isabella," Charlotte whispered, gently touching the baby's tiny hand through the bassinet opening. "I hope you like your welcome package. I picked out the yellow blanket especially for you because yellow is such a happy color." Isabella's fingers instinctively curled around Charlotte's finger, and for a moment, the 7-year-old princess felt connected to something much larger than herself. This tiny person would grow up, learn to walk and talk, go to school, maybe have babies of her own someday. And Somewhere in Isabella's story would be this moment. This gesture of welcome from a stranger who cared. "Charlotte," Kate called gently. "It's time to go home." The drive back to Kensington Palace was quieter than the morning journey. Charlotte sat thoughtfully, processing everything she had seen and experienced. The babies had been even tinier than she'd imagined, and the parents had been so grateful that it made her chest feel tight with emotion she couldn't quite name. "Mummy," Charlotte said finally, "can we do this again?" Kate glanced at her daughter in the rearview mirror, noting the serious expression on her young face. "You'd like to help more babies?" "Yes, but not just babies," Charlotte replied, her voice gaining confidence as the idea took shape. "What about children who don't have warm coats for winter? Or families who don't have books to read together? Or elderly people who might be lonely?" Kate felt tears prick her eyes. In one day, her daughter had discovered something that many people spend entire lifetimes trying to understand, that helping others wasn't a duty or obligation, but a privilege and a joy. "I think that's a wonderful idea," Kate said warmly. "We can start planning our next project as soon as we get home." That evening at dinner, Charlotte excitedly told her father and brothers about their day. She described each baby they had met, recounting their names and their family stories with remarkable detail. George listened with interest, especially when Charlotte mentioned how much the older siblings had appreciated being included in the gifts. The best part, Charlotte concluded, wasn't wrapping the presents or even seeing the babies, though that was lovely. The best part was seeing how happy it made everyone feel. The mummies and daddies kept saying, "Thank you," but I wanted to thank them for letting us help. William reached across the table to squeeze his daughter's hand. "That tells me you understand the most important thing about helping others, that we often receive more than we give." Later that night, as Kate tucked Charlotte into bed, her daughter was still buzzing with energy despite the long day. "Mummy, do you think Isabella will remember us when she grows up?" Charlotte asked, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. "She might not remember the specific details," Kate said honestly, "but sometimes the most important gifts aren't the ones we remember with our minds. They're the ones we feel in our hearts." Isabella will grow up knowing that she entered a world where people cared about her well-being. That feeling becomes part of who she is. Charlotte considered this deeply. "Like how I feel safe and loved even when I can't remember every single time you and Daddy showed me love?" Exactly like that. Kate smiled, amazed once again by her daughter's wisdom. As Charlotte drifted off to sleep, her dreams were filled with tiny faces and grateful smiles. But more than that, they were filled with plans for future projects, ways to spread the warm feeling she had discovered at the hospital to even more families who needed to know they weren't alone in the world. In her dreams, she was already wrapping presents for Christmas, organizing book donations for schools, and planning tea parties for lonely grandparents. The little princess had discovered her purpose, and it was bigger and more beautiful than any fairy tale she had ever read. She had learned that real magic happened not when someone granted your wishes, but when you worked to make someone else's wishes come true. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to help, and Charlotte could hardly wait to begin.